Hey everybody, Alex Newman here with the New American, and today we have with us Jim Barfield. He is an incredibly interesting man. I just had the privilege of meeting him in person in Oklahoma recently. Jim is basically the top expert that I know of when it comes to the Copper Scroll Project, and he's going to tell us all about that. Jim, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Glad to be here.
So, Jim, tell us about the Copper Scroll Project. What is the Copper Scroll, and why are you so involved in this effort?
Well, let's start with the Copper Scroll. It was found in 1952 at in the area where all the Dead Sea Scrolls are found, and actually, it's part of that ancient library. It's it's about 7 feet long. It's in three sections and about 1 foot wide, maybe a little more than a foot wide. But this Copper Scroll has the directions for amazing amounts of gold, silver, gems, treasures from the First Temple period. Actually, according to a couple of ancient, old documents and one ancient document, the scroll was written by five righteous men, and they named them Hezekiah, Zedekiah, Zechariah, Shemur Halevi, and Zechariah the prophet. Now think about this. Zechariah the prophet and Haggai the prophet, according to two documents, are the men that wrote this Copper Scroll. It's they had to write it backwards because they wanted the letters to extend outwards from the document. So and this document was intended to last for millennium. They were prophetically preparing this document. So whenever the time for the rebuilding of the coming next temple happens, they would have the instructions, and it would have all the treasures that would be needed to rebuild the temple. So that's what this document is. It's one of the, like I said, it's one of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Okay, and this First Temple period. I mean, regular students of the Bible will know what that means. How about a secular person who doesn't know much about the Bible? Give us a little bit more context here. What was the First Temple period? Why didn't they find it when they rebuilt the temple? And would this be used in a hypothetical third temple that we hear a lot of people in Israel talking about nowadays? Or what's the story with that?
Yeah, it was. Let's put it in the time of Jeremiah, and biblically speaking, time of Jeremiah, Haggai, Zechariah, Ezekiel, Daniel. All of these guys were contemporary with Jeremiah, and Jeremiah was actually the one that was overseer of this project. He was locked in the prison of the temple at the time, but his scribe Shemur Halevi, they were involved in writing it. The location where they were at was attacked by Babylonians. Again, this is during the Jeremiah time frame. It was attacked by Babylonians. The location that was attacked is called today. It's called Qumran, and it's a major or a very important national park. And you can go there. It's got a beautiful place to have dinner or lunch, and it's got a very nice gift shop. But guys, listen, it is all this stuff is sitting on top of incredible amounts of silver and gold ingots. Not to mention, more importantly, there are biblical verses there, biblical scrolls that have been undiscovered. One of them was written by Haggai the prophet. So there is tremendous amount. More importantly than the golden treasures to me, the silver and gold are the artifacts that could be potentially there, and the documents. The documents would open the eyes of Jewish and Christian believers immensely, and a lot of people don't know that, and Christians don't know that there are at least three prophecies in the Dead Sea Scrolls about in the scriptures. It's called Yeshua, or the Hebrew scripture, but it is Jesus, the one we call Jesus of Nazareth. So there's a lot of information that's going to be disclosed once these things come out of the ground, and I'll stop there.
Yeah, and I remember you and I spoke months ago, maybe even over a year ago, and you were showing me, the maps and the evidence, and you think you have found the location where these treasures really, and treasures not just in the material sense, as you point out, these are just priceless artifacts having to do with biblical history and God's people. Um, Tell us why you think they are where they are. And I know you and I also spoke. There's some interest in Israel. A mutual friend of ours, Moshe Feiglin, used to be the deputy speaker of the Knesset. Wonderful man. We've interviewed him here for the New American, and he just provided so much insight on events in the Middle East. I know he's very interested in the project, but tell us a little bit about where it is, why you think it's there, and what's the situation in Israel. Why don't we just go dig it up?
Well, it's politics in Israel is explosive. Anything you deal with, especially pertaining to the Dead Sea Scrolls, it is incredibly explosive. Imagine this. Let's say that those documents and those treasures are actually where I tell you they're at. That is in the West Bank, commonly known as the West Bank. That is very dangerous if they were to have taken these items out the first time we did an excavation there would have been a lot of problems had we actually pulled something out of the ground. What happened was they stopped us. We had gone down about 3 feet at the most important location of all. It's a cave, a buried cave. They stopped us. In the Oslo Accords, they have rules and regulations in there that could put those items in jeopardy if we actually pulled them out of the ground. Now, how do I know they're there? Moshe Feiglin, the gentleman you just mentioned, he and I spoke about 2 weeks ago. He went with me out to Qumran. We took a metal detector, and I'm going to oversimplify it, a metal detector that had a head on it about 6 feet by 6 feet. Now, your normal little metal detector's got probably about a 12-inch head on it, a little circular thing that you wave back and forth on the beach to try to find something. This thing is massive. And we used it at Qumran at 4 different locations. And gentlemen, there was enormous amounts of non-ferrous metals indicated on that during that test. And we've got photographic information of it showing, or computer documentation of it, and showing large amounts of non-ferrous metals. I mean, there was one place it's like 60 feet long and about, 10 to 15 feet wide, and it was full of non-ferrous metals and some ferrous metals. Non-ferrous is gold, silver, aluminum, that sort of thing. But the ferrous metals are iron, and so there were iron indications on there as well. But it's massive; it's huge amounts. So that's one of the reasons. And another thing, we tested the area where the cave is at. We sent off some plaster that we had found there, mortar, and it came back that it was more likely man-made than not. I had a expert in Israel go to the location and check it himself. He was a concrete, antique or ancient concrete expert. He looked at it and he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "This is man-made mortar. It's not naturally forming," and that's important because that location was said to have been sealed up. In other words, they placed important items inside of that cave. They sealed it with mortar and with stones and made a stone wall, and they plastered it shut so no moisture could get inside. That's another clue. And every rabbi that I've shown this to, Moshe Feiglin, I showed him my research, and he was beside himself, wondering why in the world the Israelis weren't allowing me to dig. And it's politics, guys. It is purely politics that are holding us back.
So just to clarify, Jim, for people who aren't maybe as familiar with what's going on in that part of the world, what you call the West Bank, that is area that is kind of at least tangentially under the control of Arabs, the Palestinian Authority. Now, a lot of Jews, including Moshe Feiglin, they refer to that area as Judea and Samaria, part of
Yeah.
historic ancient Israel's territory. But Arabs now claim that land for themselves, and so there's been a long-running conflict over that. And I guess if it was pulled out of the ground, then it might fall in the hands of the Arab government that oversees that piece of land, kind of, I guess, in cooperation with Israel. It's a very interesting sovereignty situation there. But so that's, I guess, the reason why you guys don't just take it out of the ground and take a look, huh?
Yeah, I'm telling you, give me a shovel, and me and my buddy could have one of the locations out of the ground in, I'm going to say, an hour, and
Wow.
it indicates 40 ingots of silver, and those ingots weigh, they're called talents in Hebrew, or amot in Hebrew, but they're talents of silver and gold. Each talent, according to the most common figure, is 75 pounds.
Wow.
And
Wow.
40 ingots, 75 pounds of silver is a lot of money. But right
Yep.
next to it, I'm going to say about 20 feet away, there's another location. Now, listen, it's got 900 talents of polished pure gold.
Wow.
You're talking 1,800,000,000 dollars worth of gold in one location. That now there are 57 locations. Do the math.
Yeah.
There's no
And
way
and
to
so
put
and so,
value on.
Jim, you mentioned already, but just to be super clear here, these are artifacts that we believe the ancient Israel, the ancient nation of Israel, God's people in the Old Testament of the Bible, buried there for future use in a future temple. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly what it was for. A
Okay.
portion of it was taken out by Haggai and Zechariah whenever they returned from Babylon. A small portion was taken out, and I know exactly where they got it from. You can see it. You can tell by the scan they took where they took it from, and they used that for Zerubbabel's temple, which was a tiny little thing that was built after they returned from Babylon after the temple, first temple was destroyed. So yes, that's what these items are intended for. Matter of fact, a rabbi told me, he said, Mr. Barfield, do you realize what you found? And I said, I think so. He said, this is the dowry for the coming bride. That it just lights came on in my mind. I'm going, okay, that's because the big deal is gold and silver. I don't really give a darn about that. But the biblical implications of this are huge, and the rebuilding of the temple, the Jewish people want it, and there's a lot of Christians that want it as well. And there's a big theological debate going on about it. Not big, but guys, it's a good thing because that means it's the time of the return of the Messiah. I don't know how religious you guys are, but for those that are Christian and Jewish, that is a very, very big deal.
Yep. And I think a lot of our viewers would be very, very interested in this. Jim, I have a couple more questions for you in the last 5 or 6 minutes we have left here. How did you get into this? People think of people who are doing what you do, and they think of like Indiana Jones and these adventurers, trapezing through the Middle East and uncovering ancient ruins and booby traps. How did you get involved in this whole search?
Uh, I simply was doing Bible study, and I tried to contact a guy named Vendell Jones. He believes up and down that he is the guy that the story of Indiana Jones is about. I don't know, but he did. He thought that, and who knows? Maybe it was. But I went to visit with him and show him some of my chronology research, biblical chronology research. But he got off on this copper scroll thing. I had read about it. I wasn't interested. It was a treasure map. I just wasn't interested. There was no biblical value, I thought, but he changed my mind. He got me interested in it. Well, I was an investigator at the time. I won Oklahoma Investigator of the Year. I won International Investigator of the Year for the International Association of Arson Investigators.
So
I
wait, you
was a
were an
good
arson
investigator.
investigator, Jim, or what kind of things did you use to investigate?
Yeah. Arson investigation,
Okay.
which is we dig through ruins to find and identify sources of fire. Well, it fit into this project incredibly well. So I started looking at it after I met him in December of 2006. And listen, believe it, don't believe it, doesn't matter. I figured out how to understand it in 5 minutes. And the reason is I followed the instructions on the Copper Scroll. It said, first line says, under the ruins in the valley of Achor. The only set of ruins that I was familiar with was Qumran. And I thought, okay, I'll search that set of ruins. And if the features on the map, on the descriptions, match Qumran, I'll know I'm on the right track. Every single one of them can be found at Qumran. Every description on the Copper Scroll can be found at Qumran. Now, that is astronomical odds. There's no way that it could have happened unless it was a spot. Then we got the testing, and we've got a lot of rabbis and politicians too that believe that I've actually found this stuff.
Wow. And so why did it take so many thousands of years to figure this out, Jim? And why you of all people? I mean, had nobody else looked at this before and said, "Hey, that must be Qumran." And I've been to Qumran. I wish I'd known this when I went there. I might have, taken a quick dig. But how come nobody figured this out for so long?
One, they didn't follow the instructions, and two, a majority of the PhDs, the guys that are big shots in this kind of stuff, they consider it to be scattered all over Israel. Now, guys, come on, think. This is tons and tons of gold and silver. They didn't have U-Haul trucks back then. That is a lot of stuff to be taken around, and I'm telling you, um, firemen are very good investigators. Let me just leave it at that. So,
Very good. I'll
I'm
take your word
joking.
for it, Jim.
Well,
Hey,
I'm
Jim,
joking.
you also have a book here. You wrote the foreword to this book, and you guys very graciously sent this to me. And I had a wonderful chat with you and Shelley, who's the author. It's called The Copper Scroll Project: An Ancient Secret Fuels the Battle for the Temple Mount. In the last couple of minutes we have left here, Jim, would you tell us a little bit about this book, your role in it, where people can get it, and why people should be interested in it?
Yeah, the whole book is about me and the project, and the guys and the people that are associated with it have helped us with it. There's very little information about what I don't have any of the locations identified in there, except for everything is at Qumran. All of it is at Qumran.
So I couldn't read the book and
That's
go dig up billions of dollars worth of treasure, huh? Crud.
well, you could. You're really brave because they guard that area really well.
I'm just
But
messing around with. Yep.
oh, I know, and I wish you would, because then it would prove I'm right, and I could go out there and finish what I'm doing. That's it. It's about the adventure that I've been on this since 2006 to get these things out of the ground. It's well written, lots of information. It's getting really high reviews, so I'm proud of what Shelley's done. We worked on it together the entire way, and I let her have full authorship or credit for the authorship on it, because she actually did the vast majority of the writing.
All right, Jimmy. So what's the timeline? When are we going to be getting this treasure out of the ground? What needs to happen? Is there anything people watching this can do other than get the book and familiarize themselves with the whole thing? I guess somebody in Israel could lobby their politicians. But so what's the what is next for Jim and the Copper Scroll project?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was working on it this morning. We are making contact with some well-known politicians. I'm not going to name them, but some very well-known politicians here in the United States, and evangelicals here in the United States. Moshe Feiglin, last 2 weeks ago, he told me, he said, "Jim, get the evangelicals involved, have them contact President Trump." Because listen, they consider him to be a King Cyrus. King Cyrus to Israel was a hero. He helped them restore Israel as a nation. He helped them get Jerusalem back in shape as a capital. But Trump has done both of that too. But he has not gotten the vessels back to the people of Israel, and that's where I can help it. So that's what we're hoping for.
Excellent. So there we go, folks. If you want to see this come to be, if you want to see this treasure come out of the ground, incredible value for those of us who believe the Bible, for those of us who believe in prophecy. One of the things you can do is work with evangelical leaders, try to get Trump to take action on this. Well, Jim, thank you so much for what you're doing. It's really an honor to have you with us. Keep at it. If there's something we can do, please keep us posted. If there's other big developments, please let us know. We'd love to have you back. And any final remarks you want to give? Tell us where people can get the book and where people can learn more about this project, Jim.
Yeah, the Amazon, go on Amazon, you can get the book. But the biggest thing they can do for us, and I'm not joking, is say a prayer that we stay within the will of God, and that we do it appropriately and within His timing.
Excellent. Well, Jim, Mr. Barfield, thank you so much for all that you're doing, folks. That was Jim Barfield. He is the leading expert on this copper scroll and the buried treasure. Thank you very much for watching. It's an honor to have you guys with us. And until next time, God bless you all.